like to call the special meeting of the Utilities Committee to order for Wednesday, April the 3rd. Roll call, Madam Secretary, everyone's present. Tonight our invocation and pledge will be led by Mr. Ken Dawson, CEO of the parish. If you will, please rise.
Let us pray. Father, we come again giving you glory and praise, O God, and giving you thanks, O God, for all the blessings that you bestowed upon us. Father, we ask for wisdom because wisdom comes through you. In making decisions, O God, for the betterment of the people of Ascension, we ask for your guidance and direction. Father, tonight, we especially pray for Nikki DeFaro, O God, and that family. We ask that you watch over them, O God, and that you put your arms around them, O God, and cradle them, O God, and encourage them in their hour of need. Father, we thank you for this meeting tonight. We ask that your blessing be upon it. Give us the wisdom to make the right decisions. We ask these blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ken. There's no chairs additions tonight. Public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak on any of the agenda items can sign up with the secretary. They'll be given 3 minutes when that item comes up on the agenda. Kind of a lead into this. Basically, what we're doing here tonight is we have a response by some companies to an RFQ that was put out by the parish, and we are here tonight to listen to presentations. We're not here this was already done through an engineering selection committee, and we're here tonight to further our knowledge on what was done past that, so as a council we can make a better educated decision on a group to move forward with this process. And I want to thank everyone for attending tonight and coming and do these presentations to help us make the best decision possible for our constituents, the people of the parish. Our first presentation is going to be, we're doing these in alphabetical order. The first one is going to be by CSRS.
Thank you, Benny. My name is Michael Sanji. I'm a principal with CSRS, and on behalf of our entire team, I'd like to thank the selection committee as well as the utility committee for this opportunity. We greatly look forward to it. We're going to try to be closer to 10 minutes than 15, if it's okay with the committee, to increase times for question and answer. I think it's important that you hear from the person that's going to be on point for us in leading this endeavor. So I want to introduce and turn this over quickly to Mr. Travis Woodard. Travis is a professional engineer. He has a master's in business administration, which I think aligns extremely well for this project. He's a great manager, he's a great team builder, and a great executor. Plus his experience in right-of-way acquisition will prove very valuable as well. So I'm going to turn this over to Travis for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening. Want to begin by saying that we at CSRS have a very good understanding of why this is so important to the people in Ascension. It boils down to a quality of life issue. We understand that you, as the parish, need to be confident that you've got safe disposal of wastewater in a manner that's transparent and efficient to the citizens at a rate that they're willing to pay for. So those are the touchstones of our approach to the wastewater issues that the parish has. The state of wastewater currently in the parish, we understand there's been a lot of studies, a lot of reports that are done. We know that you guys have over 400 private plants in the parish. Right now, you're fortunate in that you do have some consolidated ownership. You've got 4 major owners of those private wastewater treatment plants. We also recognize that you've got substantial existing infrastructure. You might not recognize it, but in all the subdivisions, you've got the basic collection system in place, getting from the homes to the existing package treatment plants, and now the challenge is getting that wastewater from a package plant to a real treatment plant that can meet today's water quality standards. So based on that, we understand why it's important we understand where you are, and then you sent out an RFQ and you asked for some specific things in that RFQ. You wanted us to look at the plans and studies that have been done and give you immediate action plan recommendations. And you asked us to formulate a wastewater management plan. That wastewater management plan needs to take into account the O&M standards, the acquisition plan, the capital planning and prioritization, the budgeting. And then you ask for a rate schedule and funding options of how you can actually pay for this system that needs to be built. So based on that, this is the team we put together. And like Michael said, we want to thank the selection committee for evaluating our team and seeing that we did, in fact, produce the best team. At CSRS, we've got a history and experience in wastewater. Right now, we are managing the rehabilitation component of the Baton Rouge SSO program. That is our team, our firm that's doing that. In addition, we've done treatment plant design for municipalities. We've done lift station and pump station design on both water and wastewater. And we've done collection system design. We've got the technical expertise. I know many of you are familiar with our program management background. We've got over $3 or $4 billion of capital program experience of implementing that size program. So we understand how to take this idea and bring it down into its component parts and pieces so that you can do one step at a time and take the actions that need to be taken. You see lots of familiar faces in the crowd. I want to start by introducing Severn Trent. That's a name you may have seen before. They've been involved in past wastewater proposals to the parish. Severn Trent's an international water and wastewater utility operator. When we come before you and we tell you this is what we think it's going to cost to operate a treatment plant, it's not us looking from an engineering perspective or what national models say. We're going to these guys that operate water and wastewater treatment plants to say, this is what it really costs. We're a for-profit company, so we understand exactly what those costs are, and we can give you good data to make decisions on instead of an engineering estimate. You might ask, well, if they're an international company, how do we know what they've done locally? Tonight with us is Mr. Mike Caligari. Mike runs Severn Trent's operations in Plaquemines Parish. They've been there for 15 years as the wastewater and water utility operator responsible for collection, treatment, and distribution of all of those utilities. Their report card, they've been there 15 years. Right now they're negotiating a 15-year extension. So I think those are the kind of people and the kind of relationships that the parish is looking to engage. Also out here is Mr. Fred Chevalier. Fred is no stranger to Ascension Parish or the wastewater issue. Mr. Chevalier has been working with the parish on different wastewater issues since 1992. He's an attorney with Jones Walker, has a tremendous deal of experience in municipal regulation, utility regulation, and municipal finance, all very important components that the Ascension Parish will need to address as you move forward with your wastewater plans. And finally, Provident Resource Group. Mr. Steve Hicks was unable to be here tonight, but Provident is a local company that's done national projects across the country. They're an asset manager, and they're another component of our team that helps you get the financing you need to implement your projects. So when you asked us to present tonight, there were a few things you asked for specifically. The first two dealt with the P16 area specifically, the cost of implementing sewer in P16, and then the cost and legal issues associated with the private treatment plant acquisitions in P16. For the cost estimating, we understand that there was a report done in January of last year that gave you a cost estimate for P16 before it was modified to extend to LA42. And that cost estimate was $18.8 million roughly. We think you really need to dig into that and understand some of the assumptions that were made to get to that cost estimate. From our preliminary looks, it appears that that cost estimate is based on the EPA estimating guidelines. Those aren't local numbers based on experience engineering and constructing wastewater systems in South Louisiana. We can get you better numbers than that. You need to understand the right-of-way issues. That report assumes that all of the new collection lines can go in street rights-of-way. We hope that's the case, but if it's not, I think some of the recent projects Ascension's undertaken, you recognize that right-of-way costs can be very, very big, and you can't afford to get that wrong in your planning. The same goes with utility relocations. There are a number of pipelines in Ascension Parish. You've got to deal with those and the planning before you even get to design to make sure that you account for where those major utilities are in your plans and your conceptual cost estimates before you get too far down the road to make a decision to avoid those pipelines. When it comes to the acquisition of private systems, one of the things that our company has done is we've been involved in the acquisition of private systems. One of our technical resources, Mr. Keith Shackelford, has actually assisted other municipalities with acquisitions from 3 of the 4 major plant owners in Ascension Parish. So we understand some of the challenges you're going to face in acquiring those systems. Severn Trent has acquired systems all over the country. They understand some of the challenges and best practices nationally for acquiring private systems. So when we tell you we understand how to go about the private systems, how to value those systems, I can tell you right now, for P16 specifically, when you try to buy 17 treatment plants instead of the entire ownership of treatment plants, you may run into some issues. If those are the high-performing plants that don't have a lot of maintenance problems, they're going to be valued at a higher cost. On the other side, they could be the plants that are in dire need of repair and the operators are happy to get rid of them. You need to understand that beforehand. When you go to value those plants, one of the methodologies used is the income approach. You're going to have a hard time getting income numbers specific to those plants that aren't from that operator's entire group of holdings. We've seen those challenges, we've dealt with them in other municipalities, and we're ready to help you guys with those same issues. There were 3 other things that were a little more general you wanted us to speak to tonight. One was the evaluation of revenue streams. How do you fund sewer? The other was the financial model, the capital plan, the implementation plan for sewer on the rest of the East Bank outside of P16. And finally, how can our team work with you guys, work with the staff to answer your questions, to provide the advice you need to make informed decisions? One of the first things I think we've got to address before we can even get to those questions is a final decision on the structure of the utility. You've got a report recently that outlines what those structures are. Before you get to the point of making decisions on how you're going to fund your sewer, you've got to make this decision on your structure. If you make revenue decisions beforehand, you're making this choice without really making it. So we want to make sure that you recognize that going in and you don't get too far down the line and pass a tax and realize, oh, well, that means I've eliminated some of these options from how we provide sewer for our citizens. The next is, we talked about the acquisition plan, the revenue sources. You've got a series of reports and studies that identify quite a few revenue sources, and we can get into the details of those. But I think what's important to recognize is the key is there's not a magic way to collect the revenue. What's important is to get out with the citizens and make sure they understand and get their input and buy-in on this is what we're willing to pay for sewer, this is what we think are the fairest ways to pay for sewer. So we're ready and willing to lead you through that effort. We have the public outreach and engagement experience to do that so that you get the feedback you need and they hear the facts they need to give you that feedback. It's got to be a two-way communication. And finally, develop the implementation plan, draft the ordinance, and give you the regulations. I've mentioned our capital program expertise. We understand how to implement large programs. That's one of the backbones of our business. We've done it all over the state and have a track record of doing that. On the ordinance and regulations, we went out and found one of the best and brightest municipal utility attorneys to help lead our team and give the advice to you on how do we structure that ordinance, the regulations. When it comes to the O&M that you asked for, we've got a real operator on our team. It's not an academic exercise from an engineer saying these are the best practices. Instead, we're bringing you somebody that does this real life all over the country. So with that, we'll take any questions that the council may have.
All right, thank you. Questions? You did mention one area that kind of piqued my interest because it's one of the things I know that personally I've been struggling with as to whether or not we do some kind of private-public partnership or totally public. And you said that that decision would need to be made prior to the revenue stream. And why would you say that, or what makes you come to that conclusion?
If I could, I'll get Mr. Chevalier to opine to that, but he's got a very good understanding of what revenue streams you can and can't do without prohibiting yourself from going the route of the public partnership.
Okay.
Sure.
That's Fred Chevalier with Jones Walker. Good evening. I think what we're talking about is when you start looking at what kind of revenue streams we're going to come up with, and you have to kind of back that into what is your structure. And the reason that we really kind of need to know what kind of structure you're talking about is because when you start looking at public-private partnerships, you have to have public entities that actually levy and determine the rate levels, the tax levels, and all of that. Private entities can't do that. They can implement it, and they can receive income and make sure that the projects get done. But we need to know which way you want to go on the structure first, so we can address those issues as to, at what time do you actually determine whether you're going to use any existing taxation? Are you going to actually just base the whole thing strictly off of user fees? And at what level is acceptable? Do you have to supplement that? All of that relates back to how the structure is put together with your special purpose entities, public-private approach, that kind of thing.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, that's something that, we've heard some stuff around that in the past, and that's why what I'm trying to grapple with is I'm not eliminating any of those, but it's always a balance between how do you fund it, and if you can do enough revenue to fund it, do you need to do the private-public partnership thing and those kind of issues. So
coming up with the most practical approach.
That's right.
And a lot of moving parts, and you just have to sit down and look at each one and figure out. You can come up with great structures, but if they just don't work for the people, what good have you done?
Yeah, and the thing too is trying to get a feel for the public understanding that if you do a private-public partnership, a certain amount of proceeds are going to go to that company, which in a project this large is going to be located typically outside of the parish. So that's money that would not be going into infrastructure. So that's a balance that you have to strike, and hopefully we can educate the public to get an understanding of what their tolerances are for it.
Right. Have to show that there's a good return to the public for whatever the investment is.
Right. Mr. President, anybody?
When looking at the P16 area, how many customers do you see as what's the potential for that area as far as picking up customers? And I know the 18.3 million, I would think that the entire area that we probably looking at a lot more money than that, as far as if we look at the tying in 42, 73 and crossing the airline, picking up businesses along there. So I know that $18 million won't go very far. I estimate that to be a little more like $60 to $80 million possibly. But with you evaluated that section, how many potential customers did you see without acquiring any existing customers from other sources?
And that's really part of what needs to be gotten into. We didn't get into actually evaluating that. In our minds, that's part of the scope of the work, is to go in and really understand where the customers are and how many customers you could get online that aren't being served by a package plant now, or by acquiring certain package plants, you could bring those customers in. I think those are all part of the analysis that needs to be done.
Okay. We got about 20 seconds left, guys. If y'all got closing comments y'all want to make real quick.
I'd just like to say, and I think it's somewhat obvious from the presentation, but our, I guess, offering to you is that we know that there's a lot of anxiety to start this first project, and that's wonderful. You've got some funds to do that, but we think that some very key legal and financing decisions need to be made, not to slow down that first phase. But, you know, you're asking how many customers, but you may need the whole rest of the customer base to determine what that rate structure is. So if you do it piecemeal, the concern is on the back end. So our whole team and our whole proposal is about giving you, yes, phase one, but more importantly, the holistic approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Next, we'll hear from digital engineering. Ken, would you mind getting the digital engineering folks? We'll give them a minute or two to get set up before we move on with their presentation.
Okay.
Gentlemen, y'all let us know when y'all ready, and we'll start at that time. When y'all ready, gentlemen?
We're ready.
Okay, Ms. Carter, start the clock and y'all on. John?
Okay. My name's Rob DeLon with Digital Engineering. I'm Vice President. And we have here also with us Mike Decato. He is the Engineering Manager of our Baton Rouge operations. Just want to first of all thank the committee for allowing us to come and do the presentation as a follow-up to our proposal. Digital Engineering is an award-winning firm. We've received 2 awards from CE News. In 2009, we were rated one of the top-performing civil engineering firms by CE News, and in 2011, we were put on CE News' Hot Firm list. We have 2 offices that are located in Louisiana. One is in Kenner, and the other is in Baton Rouge, so one office is within 45 minutes of here, and our other office is within 20 minutes of here. This is our org chart. It's kind of hard to see on the screen, but in the handouts, there's a copy of the presentation. If you look at our org chart, we have 16 registered professional engineers. And what we feel like is on all of our projects, your project engineer is going to be a PE, your project manager is going to be a PE, the project supervisor will be a PE, and the principal. And we have PEs to back up staff. So we feel like we show very strong as far as qualifications, having registered professional engineers to put on projects that we're selected to do. I want to talk a little bit about our wastewater utility management experience. We're currently managing 3 wastewater utility programs. The first one I'm going to talk about is the City of Kenner. In the City of Kenner in 2010, we successfully implemented a sewer rate increase working with the administration and the mayor. It included a public education program, which we actually did a television show, and it aired on local access television where we talked about sewer deficiencies and educated the public about sewer, and they played that periodically through a 3-week period. We also attended multiple civic association meetings where we did a presentation to educate those civic associations about the need for improvements to the sewer system. And we also did a presentation at a council meeting, which was aired on TV as well, which also talked about the sewer rate increase and the need for sewer infrastructure repair. The program in Kenner included $22 million LDEQ SRF loan, $6 million in community development block grants. It included 13 sewer lift stations, 7 new force mains, 20 backup generators, and we actually have been the program manager for the City of Kenner since 1990. We implemented a consolidation program of the 3 wastewater treatment plants, which ended in 2004. That was under a $10 million SRF LDEQ loan, which there are 3 plants that they had, we consolidated into 1 treatment plant. The second program, that wastewater program we're currently working on, is for Jefferson Parish. We're Jefferson Parish Sewer Capital Program Managers. We're currently managing 49 ongoing wastewater projects. The funding for those projects is a $35 million LDEQ loan, $30 million in municipal bond money, and $8.5 million in community development block grants. Includes 26 lift station upgrades, 13 force mains, 3 improvement projects at their 3 major wastewater treatment plants, and 7 backup generators. The third program that we're working on, which is actually very similar to what's being proposed here, is we're program managers for Harrison County Utility Authority. And that program currently going on is installing new sewer infrastructure. There's a lot of private wastewater treatment plants in the area that are being consolidated currently, which is similar to the program that's being proposed now. There's currently 16 ongoing wastewater projects. It's a $148 million program funded through community development block grants. Includes lift stations, force mains, gravity mains, 4 new treatment plants, and rehabilitation of 1 treatment plant. Our goal for this wastewater utility program would be to develop a regional wastewater utility for East Ascension, minimize the discharges of marginally treated effluent, maintain reasonable user fees, and enable the program to grow throughout the parish. Here we have a map of the P16 modified area, which includes an area between the Interstate 10 and Highway 61 along Highway 73. There's currently 9 wastewater treatment plants privately operated in that area, and associated gravity systems. And there's also many individual package treatment units for individual homes. The current capacity is 460,000 gallons per day, the flow in this area, and the future projected capacity is 675,000 gallons per day. The cost to build out the modified area, this slide basically addresses what funding you have available. The $8 million, which is currently allocated in the transmission and treatment portion of the widening of Highway 73. Also, there's $18 million of LDEQ loan money, which we're recommending be used to establish a regional transmission and treatment infrastructure in the area. Also, the cost to build the modified area, we understand that's not going to be able to fund everything. So, we're going to assess the possibility of other capital funding opportunities to increase the infrastructure footprint, which I'll expand upon in a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about consolidation of privately owned sewer treatment facilities. There's potential for 21,500 wastewater service customers in Ascension Parish, and currently have 409 LDEQ wastewater discharge permits. The goal is to reduce those wastewater discharge permits and regionalize. Similar to what we're doing in Harrison County, what we would propose is to install main trunk line infrastructure with capacity and treatment to accept future connections. We feel like TMDL regulations, which are pending, as well as parish regulations that could be implemented, would put some level of pressure on individual systems to connect to the regional system. The regional system is going to offer to these people a permitted compliant wastewater service that could eventually discharge to the Mississippi River, which most of the larger municipalities in these areas in southeast Louisiana do discharge to the Mississippi River. The treatment regulations are much less stringent. It only requires secondary treatment, as you may need tertiary treatment if you continue to discharge into impaired water bodies. And we feel like as these individuals hook into the regional system and that sewer rate funds become available, that you'll be able to implement sewer improvements and expand upon this P16 area. we'll talk a little bit about some financing options. One of the things that we would do, based upon our experience on the other programs and the success that we've had in other programs, we would go back to DEQ and talk to them about if there's any additional money beyond the 18 million at the 0.95%. If there's any money available that Ascension Parish could get allocated towards their program. If that, if no DEQ money was available, then we would go and maybe look at some municipal bonds. However, that interest rate's going to be higher than that DEQ interest rate. Another key important factor that we've been successful with is community development block grants. We would immediately look at the area and all of Ascension Parish and look at getting some community development block grants. This money that you don't have to pay back. We've been successful in these other programs, and this could supplement what's already on the table. Also, we've been successful with state capital outlay funds in the past in our programs to supplement the funds that are already on the table. Some of the recurring revenues that we have listed here, this would help to pay back any loans that were for capital expenditures, and as well as operation and maintenance of the new system, sewer user fees, a sewer millage, which could be a certain type of property tax, a connection fee. However, that could be looked at as if you build your infrastructure in an area and residents decide that they're going to connect, then maybe that connection fee could be waived because you're going to be receiving sewer user fees from them in the future. Another thing that we feel should be looked at is a regulatory fee. If you build your sewer infrastructure in a certain area and certain non-compliant discharges are refusing to connect to your system, the parish could implement an ordinance where they could impose a regulatory fee, because ultimately DEQ is going to come down on the parish for these non-compliant discharges. So that's a way to help regulate non-compliant discharges and basically encourage them to hook to your system. And another thing to look at, we feel, is a franchise fee. If you have a private utility operator that's operating within compliance, but he's operating within an area where you have a regional facility, then you should look at a possible franchise fee that could be implemented. What we have here is some sewer rate comparisons from some other municipalities in southeast Louisiana and the Gulf Coast. From what we understand, what's proposed, an average sewer monthly bill in Ascension Parish, $30 per month. If you look at the table we have here, that's about right in the middle of our table of $30 a month for an average bill. And most of these, if not all, I know maybe Slidell doesn't have some issues, but most of these are dealing with the same issues. A lot of them are in non-compliance, and so you'll be along the same lines of sewer user fees as others surrounding in Louisiana. The next slide we put together just kind of shows an average monthly bill of some other utilities that residents pay. And as you can see, the $30 monthly bill is lower in a lot of cases than many of your normal bill payments that residents make on a normal basis. So this could help to make the case that you're not proposing some exorbitant fee on them, and this is going to enhance their quality of life. Next slide is we're going to talk about the ability to work with the administration and the committee. As I've talked about before, we're successful managers of 3 very similar wastewater capital programs. In those programs, we've worked with the administration, we've worked with council members, utility board members. We have a good working relationship with LDEQ and their loan program, as well as bond attorneys. We work with bond attorneys to work on financing and refinancing for municipalities to get the most out of their capital expenditures. I've already mentioned we have a good working relationship. Currently, we've been successful in assisting the city of Kenner in obtaining a new loan, $21 million, so they have a total of $43 million they're getting from DEQ. We've also been successful in assisting Jefferson Parish in getting $35 million in LDEQ loan money. So we feel like there's loan money out there, we know it's available, and we can go to the table with our relationship to help the parish. We've been successful, as I mentioned, getting CDBG money, and we feel like there's CDBG money that can be eligible for Ascension. And we've done in Kenner a successful outreach program, so, you know, working with the community. So I guess in closing, we feel like there's really three key aspects. Our experience on implementing wastewater programs of a similar nature, from getting the funding, implementing sewer rates, as well as executing the projects, getting them built and put online. We also feel like our community outreach that we've done in the city of Kenner to help them do a sewer rate increase is invaluable. We understand that, you know, people in the community, they don't like change. But if you bring them to the table and you work with them and you educate them, they're much more likely to, you know, be susceptible to a sewer user fee. And, you know, we specialize in going and finding money for projects. That's what we do for our clients. And that'll be the first thing that we do in looking at this program, is we're going to go look for more capital funding. Grant money, we feel like we can get it, and additional loan money, we feel like we can get it, and that's why we feel like we're the most qualified team for this project.
All right. Thank you, Robert. Mr. Sadler, question?
Thank you for your presentation. I notice on your overhead under financing options, you don't include as a possible revenue source sales tax as a vote to the public, to the citizens. Is there a particular reason why you wouldn't consider that revenue stream?
Well, sales tax is, it's a possible revenue stream, I agree. However, it is not a recurring revenue stream that you can guarantee. You know, sales tax fluctuate, you know, people buying commodities, it fluctuates on the economy. So the revenue that you bring in from sales tax is going to go up and down. But the revenue from a millage will stay the same or go up as you have more residents move into the parish, and the revenue from a user fee is going to stay the same or go up as you have more users come online.
I agree, it can go up and down, but arguably it would be a much, in our parish, larger revenue stream than, say, just picking on ad valorem taxes, rooftops, property tax, and things of this nature. And in fact, I guess you know we've grown 40% is the number they keep tossing around in the last 10 years, and while we may not grow that amount in the next 10 years, it's going to be close to it, where we are still in the top 3 in growing parishes. And so I was just curious why you know.
Well, certainly we're not against it. We just listed what we thought were, you know, some good options. There are other good options out there, obviously, and we definitely would be willing to look at those.
Thank you.
Robert, I got one thing that I cringe with around here when we start talking monthly fees and those kind of things, because we really haven't gotten to the point of where I think we can do justice to picking that for our citizens yet. And we've been throwing a number around here for many years, and we decided last year that we're not going to mention that anymore because people are going to hang on it. We want to make sure we get our figures straight before we go out there and start talking what potential our monthly fees are going to be. And you came up with $30, and I know that's pretty low from what we've been talking about for the last 15 years or so. And I was just curious if you had any basis for that number.
Well, that was a number that, for the information that we provided and the studies that have been done previously, that was the number that's been, you know, put out there. So that's kind of why we talked about it. Now, you know, and that's why I wanted to put up the slide that shows the different municipalities in southeast Louisiana along the Gulf Coast, because that really gives you a better idea. You know, whatever it ends up being for Ascension Parish, you want to be somewhere, you would definitely like to be somewhere in that range where you could show your residents that, hey, others, similar communities, they're paying similar fees. So really, you know, we put that out there just because it was previous information that we had.
Okay. Mr. Kluwak?
Yeah, thank you. Good presentation.
Thank you.
Just based on some of the other areas, the other large municipalities, say New Orleans or Baton Rouge in our region, that their sewer fees based on water usage, you know, and the comparative rate of water usage. We don't have that option right now. We don't have any, you know, we don't have the parish water in this area, most of the areas. But I like the comparison that you got down here, and you actually show what some other guys, you know, are spending.
Right, and I mean, you know, the only way, I guess we wanted you to look at is the average monthly bill. They may be billing differently, but, you know, in the long run, you're going to have to bill your residents a certain fee per month, and it may be a flat rate. And as long as you can show them, we feel, as long as you can show them that it's reasonable and you educate them about the wastewater issues that you have, that they're going to be receptive to it.
And a quick question to you, based on your experience and your capacity and your resources within your organization, and you know, I got you know, everything in front of me. How many of these have been from a grassroots type, which I call what we're doing is we're getting started in the sewer business, and a grassroots type thing. You know, we've not looking to improve, you know.
Well,
We're
Harrison
looking to get
County,
started.
the Harrison County Utility Authority that we manage is very similar. You know, there's a lot of privately owned utilities in that area, and we're building main regional sewer, trunk line treatment and transmission, and, you know, taking those private facilities offline. So it's very similar to what's going on here. The other programs, they were in non-compliance. They have compliance orders from DEQ, and we're implementing improvements to existing systems on Jefferson Parish as well as Kenner.
Okay. All right.
All right, thank you. We're at a 5-minute time on the questions.
Oh, we got time?
Well, we said we were going to hold it to a 5-minute question and answer period, so I mean, that's kind of where we are with that. Unless if y'all want to go on, extend it, we got some more. We're open. It's going to extend the meeting. I know.
No, we stuck with the 5 minutes. That's all right.
Okay.
We didn't do it.
We've already started it. I agree. Gentlemen, thank y'all for y'all presentation. We appreciate it.
Okay.
We'll move on to the next folks.
Well, thank you for having us. We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank y'all, Rob.
Next time, can you look down here?
I'll look down there first. You'll get the first opportunity. I apologize on that. Yeah.
I didn't get you on, right? Through it, point first.
No, you have 20 minutes to set up. We'll give you a few minutes to set up, and 2 in my book, but no, we'll give you about 3 to 5. We'll give you a reasonable amount of time.
Just to let you know, just ran the other crew out.
We'll leave it at that.
Burning daylight.
That's it. I don't know if you want to give one to the parish president, or if he's got one already.
Grab one. I missed the first one. Do y'all have a copy? The last one. Does anybody have a hard copy of the last one?
The last one? Yeah.
We can get you one, yes, sir. No problem with that.
But you said you didn't have any hard copy.
Not quite. Good.
He's got it.
Y'all ready?
Got one more.
One more. All right.
It's ready.
All right. For those of you who don't know me, my name is David Einsel. I'm the Senior Project Manager at GSA, and I'll be presenting on behalf of our project team. We appreciate this opportunity to present to the Council and Administration for Ascension Parish. What's the current state of Ascension Parish sewer system? Ascension Parish is one of the quickest growing parishes in all of Louisiana. It does not have a consolidated sewer system. It's grown over 40% over the past decade. Residential building permits have increased 52% over the last 5 years. And this growth is expected to continue with the slotted $40 billion worth of industrial expansion in the River Parish area, which could potentially add 20,000 jobs. Ascension Parish has approximately 38,000 customers for a consolidated sewer system. 16,000 of those are on community sewer systems. The majority of the sewage within Ascension Parish is processed by private utility package plants. There's approximately 15 to 18 million gallons per day of flow generated from the proposed 38,000 potential customers. Currently, the treatment capacity of these package plants is only about 7.4 MGD. So obviously, if we were to grow as Ascension Parish, additional capacity would be needed. The current treatment and disposal practices in Ascension Parish have overloaded the natural systems. There's an urgent need for improvement. There's been multiple utility system consent decrees, numerous health and fish advisories, fish consumption advisories. Just look around. Look in the ditches within Ascension Parish. There's sewer waste throughout. The quality of life for Ascension Parish residents is eroding, and the parish's potential draw for businesses is decreasing. It's our environment. It's our responsibility. This slide shows some of the ditches within Ascension Parish with sewer waste within them. This next batch of pictures shows a couple of the package plants that are in such poor shape in Ascension Parish. So how do we solve this? Well, we need a parish wastewater program with several objectives. The objectives would be to decrease loadings to impaired waters, to reduce the potential health risk and liability to Ascension Parish residents, and to improve the quality of life for Ascension Parish residents,
to get back to when you could swim freely in the bayous like you used to when you were a kid and fish without worry. You want to also enhance the potential for economic development. The elements of this program would consist of the development of a parish-wide sewer system, eliminating discharges into ditches and streams. It also consists of setting up a parish regulatory department, which would allow for tighter regulation of private utility systems, and eventually, ultimately, result in consolidation of those private utilities. Because of our knowledge of Ascension Parish, we have a vision of how this phased build-out would occur. It would be in phases, like I said. The P16 area, which is the corridor from 42 to 73, as well as Airline, would be the first phase, with eventual phases to follow. And this particular slide shows that area there, along with the additional phases that would be on the east bank. Each phase would build upon the other one, sending flows to a regional facility in the industrial corridor with eventual discharge into the Mississippi River. So how are we going to achieve this? Well, you need a project team. Our project team has a great deal of flexibility and diversity and skill set to meet the shifting needs of Ascension Parish. GSA is on our team. They have over 20 years of local experience and sewer knowledge. CDM Smith is internationally renowned as a wastewater flow and process expert. They also have program management, O&M cost development, and financial analysis abilities as well. One interesting note about CDM Smith is that they have similar projects ongoing in St. Bernard and St. Tammany. The most interesting is St. Tammany because they have a similar growth rate to Ascension. They're growing quickly as well and have numerous issues with private utilities as well. So a lot of the issues that we are facing now, CDM has handled in the past. Full Circle Communications is also on the team. They're a minority and female-owned community and public relations firm that has experience with sewer programs in the past. We also have Malcolm Duga of Duga and Meir, who has experience in funding options, in legal matters as well. Earls and Associates is on the team, a local survey company with topographic knowledge of the parish, and PSI as well, who has done numerous geotechnical investigations in Ascension Parish. Our team will consider all options for Ascension Parish with their full input to make sure they get the biggest bang for the buck. This next slide is a general depiction of the program management that would be necessary to carry out the P16 RFQ, and it could eventually be used later on to carry out the remaining phases of this project. It consists of the legal, financial, public relations, O&M, and engineering aspects. A more detailed look is our program staffing plan. We have the same particular task identified in this, task 1, 2, and 3 from the RFQ. And we added some additional components as well that we thought were critical. One of them being the public relations. We added a component for that because we think it's critical to this whole project. It's important to get this program off the ground. And we do that by soliciting public input and ultimately garnering some support from the public for this whole system. We also added a surveying and geotechnical portion. Although this wasn't identified in the RFQ, we wanted to be ready for any potential scope changes if it was necessary to be able to respond quickly to Ascension Parish. So they were included on the team. And in addition to that, they'll have input on program standard development. The surveying firm, Earl and Associates, will be able to help us with the establishment of surveying standards, and PSI will help us with testing standards. In total, we have 20 key personnel from GSA and CDM Smith staff that have over 355 years of wastewater experience, who are specifically slotted for this particular project. Public outreach, as we discussed, is essential to this whole program. FCC, Full Circle Communications, is well versed in the possible challenges that are going to face Ascension Parish. We feel like without this professional firm, this program is not going to be successful. FCC has worked on a $1.4 billion SSO program in East Baton Rouge City Parish. They've also worked on an Atlanta SSO program for over 10 years. So we feel like their experience is a valuable part of the team. FCC will implement a public outreach program to educate the public facilitate productive community meetings, and maintain a website for public input and complaints. For the modified P16 area, our team already has a local knowledge of this particular area because we were co-author of the September 2012 report to Ascension Parish. So who better to carry out the build-out of this area? It's estimated that this particular build-out will cost somewhere in the neighborhood of 26 to 30 million. $8 million has already been spent in the 73 and 42 corridors. So the remaining cost to Ascension Parish would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 to 22 million. And the majority of this funding would come from a $18 million SRF loan. These costs are conceptual, so keep that in mind. This is a general depiction of the P16 area, which shows the Highway 42 infrastructure, sewer infrastructure that was put in place along with the Highway 73. And what we would do is add sewer infrastructure along Airline as well to pick up those commercial businesses. What are some of the issues with these privately owned sewer treatment facilities? Well, first off, they're private. So Ascension Parish can't just assume operation. There's issues with right of eminent domain, so you would have to get that legislatively approved. The motivation factors for these systems. Any regulatory requirements that, and parish regulation efforts will cause the private utility owners to have additional capital investment to meet effluent levels. The approach of the Public Service Commission is also a possible factor because rate increases could affect their quality to raise capital. The potential system cost of this, it's too difficult right now to put a value on the acquisition of these private systems because there's just too many factors that will affect the fair market valuation. The timing. We may be able to acquire some of these particular private utility systems quicker than others. So that's going to affect the overall project prioritization and build out of this system. The negotiation strategies, they may be different for each of the particular private utilities, but we'll employ whichever ones are best suited for that particular company. Available revenue and funding sources. We all know that user fees alone are not going to be able to fund this entire program implementation. So you're going to have to look at other ways to generate revenue. The most common of these are user fees, connection fees, impact fees, property taxes, and sales taxes. There's a number of other different funding options as well available to the parish. SRF loan with a current rate of 0.95, you can't get much better than that. That would be their first option. Grants, bonds, and private and public partnership are also options. But it's important to note, regardless of the choice that we make on the revenue and funding options, our team is going to develop a financial plan that balances system cost with revenues to ensure a responsible rate structure for Ascension Parish residents. What's the time frame for build-out? For the P16 area, we project it to be approximately 3 years. Beyond that, for the other phases of the East Bank, it's dependent upon a number of variables, including acquisition of private systems, the funding options, and how quickly those funds are procured, the construction times of these selected engineering alternatives, as well as economic growth in Ascension Parish. If we continue to grow at a high clip, then there's additional connections and tie-ins that would be necessary. Our ability to work with Ascension Parish. Our key team members have a long history and proven track record with Ascension Parish. In fact, GSA and CDM wrote the first environmental wastewater facility plan for Ascension Parish in the 1990s. This gives our team an added advantage of having a history and knowledge of Ascension Parish and its people. We have the flexibility to work with Ascension Parish because of our team's diversity, and we'll meet and ensure that the parish's vision for this program is implemented. Our project team also, this is important, consists of local firms and local team members. So we have a vested interest in what happens on this program. We also have familiarity with past ordinances and funding that we can offer to this project. So we feel like there's several questions that the parish administration and parish council need to ask themselves before they select someone for this particular RFQ. Who has a local knowledge of the existing sewer systems and present issues? We have that person on our team, that firm. It's GSA. What particular project team has technical expertise to handle complex design, program management, and analysis of different financial alternatives? We have that component as well at CDM Smith. Who has the ability and expertise to handle various approaches to O&M costs? It's also CDM Smith. What about the ability to develop a public information program and garner public support for this program, which is so critical? We have a professional team, a professional firm on our team, Full Circle Communications. Who has a full understanding of the available funding options, the potential parish ordinances that may be required, the legal issues, and financial planning? Malcolm Duga and Mir is that particular component of our team. And finally, what about response to scope changes? Who can respond quickly to that and develop program standards? We've included Earls and Associates and PSI on our team. So bottom line, we feel like there's no fuller complement of local experience, program management, design and technical expertise, and funding experience than our team. Our team has every necessary component to give you a successful program. That's it. That concludes my presentation, and we'll open it up to questions to our project team.
Thank you. Mr. Joseph? Any questions? Your turn.
Yeah. Who would be answering the team? My question is on the timeline of this. Do you think this timeline is very aggressive, the information that we're asking for to implement this program to the parish?
I'm going to defer to Glenn on that question.
Your question is timeline in implementing the entire West Bank, East Bank build-out? P16. We've projected that it would take about 3 years to complete the P16 area. And the reason for that, Mr. Councilman, is that there are several things that have to be done. The funding for the program, for that portion of the project, would come from the SRF money. And there are several things that have to be accomplished in order to the parish to position themselves to receive that money. One, there's several ordinances, and there's a facility plan, environmental information document. There's public hearings that have to go with that document in order to submit it to DEQ. There's probably some plans and specifications that have to be prepared in order to receive the money. So there's several components of that portion of the project that's going to take some time to develop. And then, of course, the project is bid and then it's constructed. So we're projecting that it's about a 3-year time frame to accomplish that.
Mr. Kluwat.
Yeah, Mr. Shaheen.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, quick question I got is based on our expectations of this committee and going forward to the council and the time frame that we're looking for answers, that to come back, that whoever's chosen, we're going to turn them loose, and I think it's aggressive. Okay, the time frame that we're looking at, that we're going to give somebody, and Mr. Johnson can expand on that. That we're going to be looking for some pretty decent answers
pretty quickly
for a short period of time.
Well, I think that
a lot of committee time.
Correct. I think that the key to that aggressive time schedule, and we do agree that the time schedule, at least for the P16 area, modified P16 area, and the SRF monies funding, we think is critical to the overall success of the program. So that has to be done in a relatively quick fashion. I would expect, Randy, that once you turn a group loose, the evaluation of the funding and revenue options, there's going to take some meetings with this board and the parish council and parish administration to determine which combination or funding mechanisms are appropriate for the parish. There'll be some public hearings that have to be conducted. There's a facility plan, environmental information document. I mean, you're talking about if this thing moved along rapidly, maybe toward the end, of 2013, you'll be in a position to secure, hopefully secure, the $18 million SRF. And that's with no complications, a continuous continuity of the discussions, the dialogue, the decision-making. I mean, all of that has to work hand in hand for that aggressive schedule to occur. It's not impossible, but it's going to take a team effort in cooperation from all parties to get that done.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank
Thank
you,
y'all,
Mr. Chairman.
gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
Go.
How much time do we have to
Appreciate
tear
it.
down?
2 seconds. We'll move on with the SJB Group. At this time, due to our process of going in alphabetical order of the company's names, I'd like to make an announcement that MWH did submit a package on this, but has withdrawn from the process as of this time, so they will not be submitting or presenting tonight, and we'll move on to SJB Group. We'll give them a few minutes to set up and move on.
It's powered on.
Okay.
There's your right forward page. Backwards page.
Okay.
You need to go back.
All right, thanks. Yeah. Yeah. We kept it simple. Yeah. Yeah. What's that?
If you want to give me the other ones, I'll put them down, make myself useful. Give us a couple minutes
No
for our
problem, man.
committee to come back in their time. We won't charge y'all for this time. And I'll take the bathroom. Okay. Pardon?
Everybody have this? I have 2 of them.
Yeah, you got 2 of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need one of them, Doc. That's what I'm looking for.
You didn't get that? I'm sorry.
Step out the meeting for a second and see what y'all do.
Well, you know. We're gonna give Mr. Turner a minute. We gave everybody else a second, so we'll, don't want to start without him. We got a few minutes. Counts up, yeah.
It all goes to you, right? It all goes to you, right? Okay.
John and I, yes.
I thought they volunteered for this assignment. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Save the citizens every turn we can.
We posted our presentation on YouTube.
You got a lot of hits?
It's going viral.
Okay, we're ready to proceed whenever y'all are. Gentlemen, appreciate y'all's patience with us, and whenever y'all are ready.
Good evening. My name is Michael Thompson. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for giving us the opportunity to present the qualifications of the SJB Group Henderson Ridge project team in regards to the wastewater utility management program, RFQ. Our project team brings a wealth of experience from a wide range of services, from engineering to real estate to CPAs that specialize in the financial analysis for utility systems. All of these are services which will be critical to determining and evaluating the cost and revenues associated with implementing a parish-wide wastewater utility. Our project team has direct first-hand experience in implementing and developing wastewater treatment management systems, just like the parish is pursuing right now. Our experience is not limited to out-of-state projects either. Team members have assisted multiple private utilities currently operating within Ascension Parish with financial evaluations, rate studies, and Public Service Commission hearings. We also have the engineering and technical expertise that will allow us to most effectively determine the scope of work that must be carried out in order to design, construct, and operate a sustainable wastewater utility system. Our experience with the East Baton Rouge Parish SSO program, as well as our West Feliciana Parish sewer projects, give us access to recent, local, and true equipment and construction costs. We have also conducted approximately 200 comprehensive diagnostic evaluations of wastewater treatment package plants in and around Ascension Parish. This experience gives us a uniquely intimate knowledge of the condition and operational challenges most often associated with these small systems. We understand that the ultimate goal of the parish is to establish and construct a sustainable wastewater utility on the east side of the parish within ACUD number 2. This will be done in order to connect the approximately 420 privately owned and operated community treatment systems, as well as the nearly 15,000 on-site wastewater systems, including septic tanks and other individual mechanical systems. The goal of this project, however, will be focused on developing an acquisition plan for the systems within the modified P16 area, which includes the Highway 42 and 73 corridors connected by Airline Highway. The plan that we develop as part of this project must be scalable and allow for the strategic expansion of the utility system. The need to acquire and connect the small private community systems has been well documented and is largely accepted by members of the committee. Equally important is the elimination of what is commonly referred to as septic tanks, though we all acknowledge that there are other forms and methods of on-site treatment that are equally common within the parish. The 14,000 or so on-site wastewater systems will account for nearly half of all sewer users and flows that would be expected into the parish system, so we must not forget about those in developing our cost and revenue structures. Using the location data that we already have as shown in our previous maps, we will work to establish the estimates for the costs that will be incurred by both the homeowners and the parish. Doing so will aid in determining whether CDBG funds or other rural development programs may assist willing homeowners to cover the cost of connection. Also, we must develop a uniform connection fee that will be defined based on the average cost that may be incurred by the parish. There are 4 private wastewater utilities currently operating within the parish boundaries. Our team has direct past experience with 3 of those utilities already. We have performed engineering assessments, and those assessments will be critical to establishing a true and fair evaluation of each of those systems. Our approach is not simply to do a basic engineering assessment, however. We conduct comprehensive diagnostic evaluations, which not only includes the engineering assessment of the structural and equipment integrity, but also uses our experience as a Class 4 certified operator to allow us a unique opportunity to accurately assess the operability of the system and determine its compliance and conformance with current parish practices and capabilities. The construction schedule will obviously affect the ultimate project cost and must be accounted for. Another issue here is that many of the systems that we would be looking to acquire as part of this program are under existing construction schedules through their compliance orders with DEQ and other regulatory agencies. So the parish would either need to incorporate those schedules or seek relief from those schedules. Having an adequate plan, cost structure, and implementation plan will aid in that mission. The acquisition of each system must be self-justified, even if the terms of the agreement are for multiple systems at once. In reviewing the RFQ and previous reports on this issue, we have identified 3 critical needs that we need to move forward: a wastewater management plan, the development of rate schedules and funding programs, and ultimately the acquisition plan that we discussed. The wastewater management plan must include a public outreach program. After all, we need to get public input and buy-in if we as a parish have any hopes of moving forward with the wastewater utility system. The policies and regulations will primarily be focused on O&M standards, construction standards, permitting procedures, effluent monitoring, and other inspections. A conceptual design of both the wastewater collection as well as the treatment systems must be completed in order to determine cost brackets. A rate schedule including the traditional funding sources as well as other beneficial revenue streams must be included. We will also aim to adopt a single valuation method for utility systems within the parish so that all utility systems are graded in the same manner. Our acquisition plan will be based on balancing costs and revenues, but flexible enough to allow for strategic growth and to account for other intangible and uncalculatable opportunities such as willingness of the seller. We would model our public outreach program, which we have preliminarily named the Bring Back the Bayou campaign, after some of our team's other public outreach efforts, including outreach that was conducted as part of our CDBG projects completed in West Feliciana Parish, as well as the current West Bank Connector outreach program. Of particular note, as we presented in the previous slide, is our experience by project team members in establishing and leading the CSO Advisory Board to gain consensus support for the implementation of the Nashville Sewer Improvement Program. The board engaged key stakeholders from the public, regulatory agencies, environmental organizations, and others to inform the many constituencies affected and was invaluable in assisting in building wide-ranging public support for the long-term public works project. In all that we do as part of the Bring Back the Bayou campaign, we will focus on increasing public education and understanding that we are not doing this because we enjoy added regulations, nor is it because it is convenient for the parish to do so. The entire purpose of this wastewater utility project is to improve the protection of public health and to improve the quality of life for citizens in Ascension Parish. As the parish aims to expand its role in the wastewater business, there will most certainly be legal challenges that arise as the parish either establishes new offices or departments, or at a minimum increases the role and authority of existing offices. We will rely on our deep-rooted relationships with experienced legal experts, such as Jeff Diaz, as well as any other parish key assets. In order to secure additional state revolving funds in the future, it is likely that the parish's ordinances, enforcement, and sewer use fees will come under review. We must acknowledge that at the beginning of the process and incorporate any requirements of that program up front. The idea of a parish-wide wastewater utility system in Ascension Parish is not a new idea. After all, it's been studied for many, many years. The time has come to utilize that information and execute a program. We will execute by creating a conceptual level design that is critical, as it is necessary to properly determine the scope, schedule, and related costs. All the while, the cost developed through our other local projects remains applicable. The conceptual design will also focus on developing construction standards and O&M standards for future sewer projects, as this will have a dramatic impact on the cost of implementation. Creating a conceptual level design will also allow the parish to factor in other alternate sources of revenue, such as that realized from a biosolids or sludge management system, such as what we observed in Picayune, Mississippi. Inclusion of alternate revenue streams, such as this, as well as the sale of reclaimed resources, such as reuse water or biosolids, is critical in developing a truly comprehensive financial plan.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Bill Barta, and I'm a principal of the firm Henderson Ridge Consulting out of Atlanta, Georgia. Over the years, our firm has been fortunate to do a great deal of work on behalf of the Louisiana Public Service Commission, but this is the first opportunity I've had to present before a parish in Louisiana, so I appreciate your time this evening. Just very briefly, I'll touch upon some of the traditional funding sources. I'm sure you all are quite familiar with your credit rating of a AA, which is very high. From your financial statements, I found out that the financial flexibility, the degree of leverage that you all have available to you, to the parish, is very high, exceeds $300 million. Of course, you don't want to tap into all of that because then you'll use up your financial flexibility. You have, according to financial statements, a couple of general obligation bonds and some revenue bonds outstanding with varying maturities and rates that range between 3 to just over 5%. Pretty low cost financing available to fund the regionalization of the wastewater system. You're also making use of your federal and state grant opportunities. It'd be nice if we could maximize those, since they are low cost, very low cost, or free. I think Michael touched upon the uniform rate structure throughout the parish. Now, he brought up the equitability of that, but also it's for administrative ease. You just don't want to have fragmented wastewater systems with different tariffs and fees. I also brought up accelerated cost recovery of the system upgrade. This would come in the form of surcharges if necessary, if you can't appropriately match the financing maturity with the economic lives of the systems. It's been my experience that sometimes when you go to the bond markets, they don't want to give you financing beyond 10 to 12 years. And if your systems are going to be recovered over 20 years, you kind of have a mismatch, and we have to do something about that, or we may have to do something about that. Let's see if I can go use this complicated. There we go. Okay, the treatment facilities as investments. I recognize that the parish is a tax-exempt entity. It doesn't have shareholders to respond to, but it does have citizens to report to. Nevertheless, I believe that there should be recovery of and on the system investments. The recovery of would be the depreciation that you're entitled to over the life of the facility. The recovery on would be the return that should be commensurate with the level of risk. It would just be as any business endeavor, and after all, this is going to be an enterprise fund to reflect the business nature of the system. The appropriately structured cost recovery and investments, economized and debt service obligations. Again, there should be ideally a match between the maturity of the debt obligation and the economic life of the system. I've been in situations before where we had to kind of adjust the cost recovery and accelerate that with surcharges with other organizations I've dealt with. I think Michael has touched upon the engineering plans to design to accommodate customer growth and maximize revenue generation, and this would be on a modular basis versus, as you all understand, how wastewater investments can be very lumpy at times. You have to put in the whole system to treat the area. Yet there's not the customer base to justify, the high monthly fees that may be expected. Avoid deferred maintenance practices. That's kind of like preaching to the choir. We want to avoid that and not get in the mess that some of the wastewater treatment systems are in the state of Louisiana and other states. I'll turn it over to Michael in a minute, but I just wanted to say I've worked with a couple of the wastewater systems that you're all looking at acquiring on behalf of the Louisiana Public Service Commission. One of them probably more than I wanted to be involved in with, but nevertheless, I'm pretty familiar with all four of them, and two have worked on engagements on behalf of the commission. So I'll let Michael close us up.
So where does this bring us to? This brings us to creating an acquisition plan that will allow for project prioritization. We will take an approach of balancing the cost and revenues. The cost being the conceptual design, scope, schedule, and other costs. The revenues being from the rate structures, the impact fees, and alternate revenue streams. We'd create a formulary or other evaluation matrix that will aid the Ascension Parish in its decision-making process, resulting in a prioritized list of projects that, again, allow for a scalable and strategic expansion of the utility moving forward. Thanks.
Thank y'all. Questions? Mr. President.
I just want to, on the flexible 300 million, I'd like to know a little more about that.
I'm sorry, sir.
300 million you mentioned, that's flexible? I'd like you to come show me where that's at.
Well, actually, it's out of your financial statements. There's, as you all know, there's a parish or a state statute on the funding that you can realize there's a ceiling of 35%. And you have approximately $89 million in long-term debt outstanding, and the cap of the ceiling of that would be $305 million. So if you wanted to, you could, or if you can, depending on the terms. Now, if you go up that curve, the price of, or the cost of the debt is going to be a lot more expensive. But I'm just saying, it is there, and it's kind of a luxury, really. I mean, most parishes and counties don't have that kind of flexibility.
Flexible, it's not there. It's there if you want to borrow it.
That's a term of flexibility. Yes.
You got to pay it back to them.
You got to pay it back.
That's the other thing, is having revenue to pay it back.
Yeah, it's more of a financing term than flexibility.
Mr. Joseph.
Yes, sir. I'd like to ask you a question. You said you're familiar with the private-owned companies that we have in the parish right now, and how you feel with a private and public partnership. Is that feasible from your experience?
I've seen it work, not necessarily in the wastewater industry, but telecommunications partnering up with municipalities. You'd have to take a look at just exactly what you want to structure. It's kind of a, I understand your question, but you'd have to take a look at the individual owners as well as the thrust of what you're trying to achieve with those owners. I think a full acquisition would be the better road for what your objectives are as far as wastewater treatment regionalization plans.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, gentlemen, thank you all for your presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to our last presenter for tonight, which will be Volker.
Okay, thank you. Presentation. Should be to the right to advance it. Arrow to the left to go back.
Pointer in red. Pointer in red.
This is to the right.
A pointer up here.
Oh, yeah, the little red button.
We have handouts that we'll be giving after the presentation. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sufficient for you?
Yeah, I
We
think
got a
that's
handout?
fine. Where, I'm learning the system. Good
There you
evening.
go. They said they were going to give them afterwards.
Chairman Johnson, members of the Utility Committee, President Martinez, and councilmen. I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Jan Evans. I'm the Vice President with Volkert and Associates. I'm in charge of the Louisiana operations. We are very excited to be able to give this presentation this evening, and we welcome the opportunity. We think we have a very unique team. We'd like to let you know that this team has been together for about a year. It wasn't formed just in response to this RFQ. We have a signed teaming agreement with all the firms that are on our team, so they're committed to this project. The organizational chart for the project team, Volkert is the prime. We are a company that's 85 years old. We have about 700 employees in the South. I represent Volkert, and Mr. Diaz is with me from Volkert. We have the addition of an engineering firm, Manchac Consulting. Mr. Kenny Faraci is here with Manchac. Justin Haydell from Manchac is our proposed project manager. Mr. Haydell has provided services to close over 10 state revolving loan loans, totaling close to about $300 million for numerous cities and parishes. He's also the engineer of record for the largest treatment plants in the state. We think they bring a lot of expertise to the table. The next firm on our team is AWT, Ascension Wastewater Treatment. Mr. Tom Pertwee is with us this evening. He brings the knowledge of the local issues, being in business in over 30 years, knowledge of DEQ and DHH issues. We also bring with us San Jose Water, Mr. Rich Roth, who will be helping me present tonight. San Jose has provided services for over 147 years. They serve over 1 million customers through about 225,000 connections. They bring capital, management expertise, and a proven record of success to our team. And they're in it for the long term. The final member of our team is GoTech, a certified DBE company. Mr. Raul is with us this evening. As we go through this presentation, they will all be available to answer your questions. Our agenda tonight is going to be a little unique. We're first going to explain our team's vision for the full-scale implementation of a wastewater collection system. And then we're going to address the 5 points you asked us to focus on. So the first unique portion of our team, Ascension Wastewater Treatment, for those of you who might not be aware of it, they have 135 systems within the parish. This is an exhibit that shows the dispersion, and it's also in our PowerPoint. They bring the ability to speak for some of your other sewer treatment plant owners and operators, which would total about 200 systems in Ascension Parish. They would give us that knowledge. We can tell you where their plants are, what their capacity is, and look at how they would interconnect. Mr. Rich Roth is going to carry on the next part of the presentation. He is chairman of the board, CEO, and San Jose Water is a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange. Rich? This one goes forward, and that one goes back.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Johnson, members of the Utility Committee, President Martinez, it's nice of you to take time to have us here, and I very much appreciate it. As Jan said, our presentation is twofold tonight. One, we want to make sure that we address the issues and items that are in the request for us for our presentation, but we'd also like to present with you a little larger vision of what we think is possible for providing us a parish-wide wastewater system that meets all your needs. I think it's important as we look at that to understand and revisit the key goals and objectives as we understand them. I think the primary and first goal is always to ensure public health and safety. We want to make sure that all the streams and the waterways and the bayous that are in the Ascension Parish are clean and well taken care of. And that secondly, and that leads to environmental stewardship, to make sure, by virtue of compliance with all rules and regulations, whether they be federal, state, or local, that we are providing the kind of environmental stewardship for all the people in the parish so that they can live and enjoy life here very safely. Also, we want to make sure that the enormous amount of economic potential that this parish has can be realized because we have a parish-wide wastewater system that will encourage economic development and provide the kind of homes and quality of life that the employers are going to want for their employees as they move and invest into the parish. All of this means that we must do that with an eye on customer rates. It's always an important issue. We have to be able to do this task in a way that your constituents, our customers hopefully, will be able to afford this sewer service because it is expensive, it's going more expensive. These are the infrastructure projects that cost hundreds of millions of dollars in the final build out, and it's going to take a lot of time and money, and we want to make sure that your constituents and hopefully our customers understand and appreciate those rates and are able to pay them. Furthermore, I want to talk about how important it is, in our view, to collaborate and memorialize this parish support. There are many things that you do that are essential to all services and all aspects of the parish. Without your support, without working with you, we can't get very far in this process, and we wouldn't do it. Your support, your direction, your input is very important. We envision working closely through a formal collaborative process where it would be joint participation committees to discuss, among other things, rates, regulation, the statutory and legal framework that is necessary to provide water service and get all of the multiple connection of the septic systems and unsewered households in the parish to become part of a parish-wide system. And those are very important things, and we think that we have to have a formal collaborative process to do that. There's also the issue of making sure that we value engineer this project to make sure that existing infrastructure and planned infrastructure, whether it's in highway developments or the building of new centers and so forth, that we work very closely with the parish engineer and with other parts of the parish to make sure that we are doing things in conjunction with you and not building things that could be built more efficiently without it. The last thing, without collaboration, the last thing I'd like to say that we'd like to make sure that if there is an opportunity to use low-cost financial assistance, could be a community block development grant, it could be a state revolving fund loan. If those are available to you and not available to us, we'd like to make sure that we use that low-cost financing to ensure that the system that is built is done at the lowest possible cost so that we can keep rates as low as possible. So I probably should have fast-forwarded this slide right here. It's just what I just said. I apologize for that, but I think you get the point with that. I'd like to take a little minute here to talk about how it works. I'm sorry that this is a little bit small and hard to read, but there's probably 5 important entities that we need to keep on the radar here. Of course, number 1 is the parish and all its constituents. They are the centerpiece. Then there's Ascension Water Treatment Company, which is Tom Pertwee and his connections. And then there's us. But we also have to work within a very important regulatory structure. That is the DEQ, the DHH, and the PSC for a privately owned regulated utility. So the way we see it is, for example, as you look at this box, and does this have a pointer here? There it is. So this, it doesn't show up on the screen. The middle box is the parish. You can see AWT and SJW up there. So the way we envision this working is that AWT would be capitalized or recapitalized by our company, providing, besides capital, any managerial or operating expertise that would be necessary. If there are assets that are owned by the parish or any other parish entity, let's say it's a parish wastewater system that they already own or something that they can construct with a low-cost loan, we would be able to use those assets, integrate them into our system, and pay the parish for those assets, so they would end up being no-cost assets to the parish. We would have to have the parish input and support to deal with DEQ and the Public Service Commission, because those two entities sometimes, while they're both state entities, do not always, the left hand does not always know what the right hand is doing. If the DEQ mandates that we do certain things, then we have to be able to pay for them. We think it's very important that we have the support of the parish to do that. And so, I mean, it's a very simple, AWT stays in place. We use their existing assets as a platform. They have the critical mass and economies of scale that are necessary to keep rates low. We would add additional systems to that as we go along. The capital would be provided, and management expertise would be provided by SJW, and we would have an integrated parish-wide system that would be well capitalized, it would be able to raise additional funds, and actually achieve the objective of investing hundreds of millions of dollars in the parish to complete this system. So what do we need to do to get this done? Well, we think that what we don't want to do is ready, fire, aim. We think that we need to assess the existing systems that we have, the existing infrastructure, do that very carefully. We need to evaluate the legal and regulatory framework that is, not just the parish rules and regulations and laws regarding wastewater, but also those that the DEQ and the PSC, and make sure that those are appropriate and in our best interest to make sure that everybody can get wastewater service at an affordable rate. We think that the integration of project financing, engineering, and all the things that need to go with the PSC and DEQ are directed by you in large part, and that your support is necessary to do those things. In essence, what this means is a master plan. But a master plan, as we envision it, would be not just an engineering master plan, but would be an economic and engineering master plan that would have a phased and integrated approach with specific action items that you could actually use to build out the system. And so that would be the plan. It would be done through an iterative and collaborative process with the parish, so that when we got done with this, you would have your good housekeeping seal of approval on it, and it would be something that wouldn't be put on a shelf and a couple years later taken down. It would be something we would actually do. We would also use that plan to communicate with the PSC and the DEQ and the DHH to make sure that they understand how important this is, and that the parish, that they have to work with us to make sure that this wastewater system is achieved. And with that, I think we would be able to communicate with those agencies. And finally, I think we could use it to communicate with your constituents, the citizens of the parish, who are going to need to know what's going on and how this money is going to be spent and why their rates are going to change. So that's the first thing and that needs to be done, and we think that until we get the approval, the support, the green light from the parish, from this utility committee, and from those who are important people in this room, that it's probably not good for us to go forward. Am I running out of time here, Jan? Yeah.
Yes, sir, you get 2.5 minutes left.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this back over to Jan because we do have to cover the...
Yes,
No,
sir.
1.5, I'm sorry, a minute and a
I
half.
have to cover the points on how our vision relates to the 5 focus points that we were asked to address. The first focus point was the P16 build-out. We have identified 7 of AWT facilities in that area. Your existing 201 facilities plan estimates $12 million to build that out. Now, we know that's a draft facility plan and it has not been finalized. We would propose utilization of the AWT facilities in that area, along with the 21-inch gravity main line along LA 73. We would come up with an option that would have to be updated in the 201 facilities plan. We also realize you do not have the EID, the environmental document, done for that plan, which would have to be done to utilize that $18 million. We estimate it's going to take you about 1.5 years, 2 years to get that done once this plan is finalized, to be able to pull that $18 million. But we think we could use it in this area. You could do it through the State Revolving Loan Fund. In the scenario that was presented, it would be leased back from the parish. Once again, there's a teaming in place for this project. The integration of the privately owned facilities isn't an issue. They're part of our team. They're part of our plan. We bring them in willingly, and everybody's working in good faith.
Give you a couple seconds to wrap up.
Thank you very much. The rate-based revenue stream in this scenario would be set by the Public Service Commission based on the cost of service. The rates would be tied to use. Customer connection fees would be paid at the time of connection and billed monthly. it would be by an independent board, state board, that would set these rate fees. It would not necessarily be a council decision. The long-term capital improvement program, the project team envisions a build-out which mirrors, which Rich said, the economic development of the system. You can't build it if they're not ready to connect to it. It doesn't make economic sense. So the build-out would be planned along with the economic development to bring in the connections that would justify the service and the rates. There would be no cost to the parish government. It's a private corporation. Design build can be used by this private corporation, so we can drastically shorten construction time. And the facilities, once again, which would be constructed with the 18 million, or any other constructed parish facilities, could be leased back.
I'm gonna have to cut you off there. I appreciate your
Thank
time and your information. Thank you very much.
We'll
I
answer any
apologize for having to
questions
do
that you
that. So, questions for anybody? Okay, no questions. Thank you all for your presentation. We'll move on. I found this to be a very informative process for us. I think I've learned a lot tonight. I'm glad to see a lot of continuity across the board in some areas of this thing. And so from there, the wishes of the committee as far as a recommendation to the full council. Councilman Sadler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank all the presenters, at least those that are still left in the room, for coming and giving what was a group of excellent presentations this evening. This, of course, is a very difficult decision. I don't need to say that for all of us to make this evening, because when we do so and we make a recommendation, along with the recommendation that's going to come from the Professional Engineering Committee to the full council, and then they sanction our company from there. Let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, that's a company that we are, and I use this term in quotes, and affectionately stuck with, so we want to be really sure we do the right thing. Now, I couldn't help but, when I read the 6 different proposals and looked at the scores of our Professional Engineering Committee, I thought it important to maybe set the tone tonight before we begin our deliberations and then eventually, quote-unquote, pick a winner, to say the following. I drew upon my collegiate experience as a professor and ran some statistical analyses on what those 5 evaluators in our Professional Engineering Committee did with these 6 different companies. And my original suspicions, just looking at the means of just, for example, the top 4 ranked companies, I saw that those companies had a mean range that incorporated only a 4-point difference across all 4 companies. With, and this may not make a lot of sense to a lot of folks, but with the standard error, which is a measure of the variance among those means, of around 2 to 4 points, which meant to me, before even running a statistical analysis, that these companies were ranked by our Professional Engineering Committee to be just about equal. I'm not saying they didn't do a good job. Actually, I think they did a quite extraordinary job, but it just means they're telling us that all of these companies pretty much have the expertise to do this job, making, of course, then our decision even more difficult. I want to conclude by saying this: using a confidence level of 95% certainty, for any statisticians out there, that's the P less than 0.05 level of statistical confidence, and conducting what I did 15 pairwise mean comparisons. In other words, take CRS, compare them to GSA, and CRS to SJB, and MWH to CRS, and Volca to DE, and so forth. There are 15 possible combinations if you do the math there. Only 2 pairwise comparisons wound up being different. And without putting names on it, that would be the company that was ranked by our professional committee number 1, being in their mind superior to number 6, and also company number 2 in their mind superior also to company number 6. And so what that means is that all, and I emphasize the word all, other pairwise company comparisons that I made, all 15 of them, were what we would call statistically similar, meaning they do not differ by scores of the Professional Engineering Committee. And so therein lies a little bit of a dilemma, because I am not, nor I'm sure my colleagues would admit, a professional engineer. But we can read, and of course we were privy tonight to the excellent presentations of all, well, not all 6, but 5 of the companies that chose to present, and we have to make a decision. But the tone I'd like to set is, though, this is, to me, wide open, because what we see here is a lot of companies can do this. And that being said, however, we have to pick one. Now, I have two in mind, but I think I'm going to quit right here and let some of the other councilmen talk and see if they too feel like one of the two companies that I think that could do the best job is also high up on their list, and then go for there. And Mr. Chairman, I thank you for have given me the time and for everyone listening.
All right, thank you. Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, this process was a very learning process. I think this is one of our decisions that we have been working on and really doing our homework on it and looking over it. Like you say, the companies that are in here, all of them is qualified to do the job. That's not the point. The point is right now we have to decide on the company that's best suit this parish. And with that, my motion, if anybody don't have any other question or input.
We can have further discussion after we get a motion in a second. But if you want to make a motion right now, we will entertain that.
Yeah, I make the motion that we go with GSA.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Joseph to go with GSA.
Mr. Chairman, I would second that motion.
Second by Councilman Saddle. Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion. Any opposition? That motion passes. We will pass this on to the full council tomorrow night to recommend GSA. I will remind everyone in the audience that tomorrow night the administration through the Engineering Selection Committee will present the top three firms from the original RFQ. We will present our recommendation to the full council, and from there we will have debate and make a selection. I would like to thank everyone for the time and effort into this. Like I said, very informative, very pleased with the information we've gathered here, and I feel we're on the right path to this thing. A key issue to me and everyone up here, and I think everyone on the council as well as administration, is public information and public knowledge, and I was very pleased to see that everyone mentioned something in their packages and their proposals and realizes how important it is to put this information, get information out there to the public to get them to understand the depth of this issue and what it's going to take for us to get into this business and why we're even considering getting into it. It's not something that said we're relishing the fact of getting into it, but I think it's something from a regulatory issue. We all understand what our roles have to be. And again, I want to thank everyone for their participation tonight. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Motion by Councilman Joseph, second by Councilman. No comment cards. I have a second by Councilman Satterley. We are adjourned. Thank y'all.